Welcome to the 15 Minutes with a Farmer podcast from Successful Farming, where quick conversations reveal big truths about agriculture and life. I'm your host, Lisa Faust-Prater. As we honor veterans this week, meet Navy veteran, chef, and first-generation farmer Justin Butts, who is building soil and community at Blackwind Farm in upstate New York. Justin, thank you so much for joining me today on 15 Minutes with a Farmer.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You are following in your grandfather's footsteps in a couple of different ways as a farmer and veteran. Did you always want to be involved in farming growing up with your grandpa like that?
Initially, no. He owned like 3 houses. So he had gardens at every one. And he would tell me when he grew up on the farm in like North Carolina and the animals they would have and the things they would do. So I would love to ask him questions about the farm. So he was always talking to me about it. And he would make me go out with him to the garden, and we'd garden for like hours every day. Me and him grew a lot of food, and we would give it out to the neighbors or the people that rented apartments from him. We ate a lot of it, and I really enjoyed that. And then when I got a little older, my parents bought a house in Pennsylvania, and I kind of like took that experience and would grow food in our backyard. And my grandpa would also tell me about his time when he was in the Army and how he when he was like 17, he wanted to like leave North Carolina, because he was in a small town in like Western North Carolina, and he was surrounded by his family. He had, I think 21 brothers and sisters. So the land was going to get like split up pretty badly. And it was just, this is the 1940s. So he joined Army, went to World War II. And so he would tell me about his experience there in Germany and France. My grandpa passes when I was around 10 years old. Then when I was about 17, my family like lost their house, unfortunately. So when we moved into this new house, it was in the middle of a huge farm. It was one of the old farmhouses for the farm we rented. My dad had met the neighbor, and she owned a feed store. And she hired me like on the spot because I'm really tall. I'm like 6'7". And at this point, I was probably like 320 pounds. I was playing football in high school. I was on the wrestling team. And she was selling like horse food. So it was like 40 and 50, it was like 50-pound bags that we were taking to different farms all day. And I got to take care of our horses. I'd never gotten to work with farm animals. She became one of my like mentors, like best friends. She taught me a lot about farming, and I got exposed to a lot of farms in rural Pennsylvania that I would have never gotten to go to or see if it wasn't for her. Her name was June. She was a very good friend of mine. I'd always been interested in going to the Culinary Institute of America since I was like 9 years old when I saw the first episode of Iron Chef. You had to work in a restaurant for like 6 months before they would accept you. This is rural Pennsylvania. There are no restaurants around that were like suitable. But I worked in the local grocery store, and the owner said, "Hey, we do cooking classes here. You should be the assistant chef for the cooking classes." And the chef that was teaching the classes was from Johnson and Wales, and the other one was from the Culinary Institute. But they both worked at this resort that wasn't far away. So I ended up getting a job at the resort, and I worked there for a year. I got accepted into culinary school, but it was $20,000 a year, and my family had just lost their house, so they couldn't go sign. I was disappointed. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I managed to get into the Navy when I was about 21. That was in 2010. And I loved being in the military. By the time I was in the military, 18 months, I had gone from being E1 to E5. And I was the second-class petty officer. In 18 months, I was on the ship, and I was in charge of an admin office. And I loved being in the Navy. I thought I was just going to stay in the Navy for 20 years. And then we were on my second deployment, and we had just left the Philippines, and I got like a big bruise on my leg. And they did a blood test. And I'm like, "What's wrong?" Like, "You have stage 4 leukemia. We need to take you off the ship." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they flew me to the Philippines. The next morning, the Navy paid for 2 doctors that were pilots. And they put me on a plane, and they flew me to Singapore. And the doctor in Singapore said, "No, you don't have leukemia." They sent me back to San Diego. They said, "You have to go see a doctor in the mainland."
Right. Yeah.
And I ended up getting like a full medical retirement because I still need to have chemotherapy every month for the rest of my life. Or I have an autoimmune disease called thrombocytopenia. So if it's not treated, it looks like I have stage 4 leukemia, and it'll affect me in such a way. If it's treated, I'm a perfectly healthy person, and no one would know there's anything wrong with me. So whenever I would go home, I would go to this one farm that June and I had sold a barn to, and we used to deliver horse food to. The owner was a veteran, and he said that him and his wife wanted to sell it. And he knew I was another veteran. He asked if I was interested. I'm like, "Oh, it sounds really good." So while I'm doing that, I also applied to the Seed Farm, which is a program run by Penn State in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. And that program was a year-long apprenticeship in organic farming with classroom time and field time. I learned how to use a tractor, how to basically turn a field into a farm. We went and visited like 25 different farms that year and got tours and talks from all the farmers. So I got to learn a ton about, ran farmers markets for the full year with the cash flows and everything. Got to learn a ton about farming and marketing food and talking with people at the market. So I'm learning about farming while I have this farm. The owner left me with 500 chickens. I purchased 4 Kune pigs, a breeding trio and like one to eat. And the year was going all right. My family was loving the farm. I started to find there were things that the farmer didn't tell me about. There was a pipe going under the ground. They were going to dig it up and basically redo the pipe. And so it was going to make it so I couldn't farm. The walls had mold in them. All the paperwork said it was an organic farm. And when I had the organic inspector out, who was another Army veteran, he said, this is not an organic farm, never has been. I knew that we had to get off that farm. And then I went back to plan A, which knew if I went to culinary school, I'd get paid my VA benefit, my GI Bill. And I was very popular in culinary school because I had a herd of pigs. None of the other students had pigs in culinary school, so I could talk to the teachers about about butchering my own pigs. And I eventually started making soap out of the pigs. I took a class from the lady I bought them from because they were lard pigs. And while I was in school, my teachers helped me develop a soap business. So I'd go into class some days and make $100 just selling soap.
That's amazing.
And then classmates would come out to Pennsylvania and help me butcher pigs and do things. Yeah. And I went to go pick up some apples one day. I was telling the farmer what was happening to me. But he let me keep my pigs at his house for the rest of the time I was in college. And then his family let me use their kitchen to make my soap.
So eventually you found a farm of your own in upstate New York.
After culinary school, I got hired on Soul Fire Farm in Grafton, New York. And I was their livestock manager there in 2020. And then they said, we don't want to have livestock anymore. So they sold me all their livestock. And then because I had kept pigs all those years, I had experience as a livestock manager. I had at one point when I was in college, I had 80 pigs. I had 500 chickens. So I got hired at Laughing Earth Farm down the road from Soulfire, where I was their livestock manager. 300-acre farm. They do 70 cows, 4,000 chickens a year. They butcher them on the property, 300 turkeys. While I was doing that, I was in the Braiding Seeds Fellowship through Soulfire Farm. And they introduced me to America Farmland Trust. And they told me about this farm here that I'm on now that was the farm kind of had its own issues. A really great farmer had it for 30 years, had an organic beef farm, beautiful property. He sold it to a company and they did a lease to buy with this other farmer. And this other farmer basically destroyed all the equipment, ran the farm into the ground, and he basically destroyed the property. Because of that, the property value had gone down by $100,000. So I was able to buy it. The property I have now is 106 acres. And this farm had its own hard times. If I could have been here at the beginning, everything would be amazing. But it got kind of beat up, and I got kind of beat up, and so I'm we'd be beat up together. So but when I got here, I immediately cleaned up. I ordered a dumpster. I cleaned up the trash. The neighbors saw me picking up the trash, and my neighbors started pulling in the driveway to help me. They're like, "You didn't make this mess. You shouldn't have to clean it up." And they helped me get the farm back together. So my neighbors are all wonderful. Some of the best people I've ever lived around. And they helped me on the farm too, because a lot of them have worked here on the farm when the older man had it, since they were kids. So it's kind of a neat connection. And now I have it. I wouldn't have been able to buy the farm if it wasn't for Iroquois Valley. When I was trying to buy it, I was trying to get a loan through Navy Federal and a lot of other traditional banks. And if I want to use the VA loan at the time, I didn't have to have any down payment to buy a house. It's zero.
Right.
But the VA loan at the time wouldn't let you buy a business, so they wouldn't let you buy a farm, even if you're going to live there. Even if you can afford it, they would. And the bank wanted me to have 20%, and then they held the mortgage for me. So it's been actually a very useful arrangement, and it would have taken a lot longer to get onto a piece of property without.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me what the farm looks like today.
I'm redoing the fences, but I have the cows and the pigs, and it's green and beautiful out there, and it's pretty peaceful. I live on a plateau in the Hildeberg Mountains, so I'm pretty high up, so I can see mountains that are 30 miles away in one direction, but there's nothing really that's taller than me that's near me. I just feel very safe here.
That's amazing. So I'm wondering if you had lessons that you learned in the military that you're finding helpful on the farm.
I mean, perseverance is I would say, the most important lesson in in farming. There's a lot of days where everything goes wrong. There's a lot of months and years and weeks, and sometimes it feels like everything's on fire always at once. And like you just have to be able
Yeah.
to persevere. I would also say
Right.
it's the importance of like community. Like when you're on the ship, you're your own like city. You need your people to be there with you to help you when you're having those times. So community and just perseverance, I think, are the biggest things with farming.
On top of your grazing operation, you're doing some on-farm, hog butchery workshops, farm to table dinner. But I want to talk to you about the Piedmont Boucherie at Comfort Farms. I'm just going to read a little description of that for our listeners. Every year, a group of farmers, butchers, chefs, food lovers, and veterans come from all over the country to Central Georgia to put on a gastronomical and educational tradition known as Le Piedmont Boucherie. It's held at Comfort Farms, the nation's first acute veterans crisis agriculture center, agrotherapy farming initiative that gives veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and other invisible disabilities a place to heal, learn new skills, and transition back to civilian life. So first of all, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And you are a farmer and a veteran and a chef. And so you're wearing like all of those hats of these
I know,
people
right?
that are coming together.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So tell me what it's like to be in that environment and be representing all of those groups of people.
That event is the highlight of my year every single year. The founder of Comfort Farms, John Jackson, is actually my mentor and a good friend of mine. There's agricultural there's therapy moments of it too, things to help you deal, like talk and just connect. And
Sure.
they have people that do mushroom foraging, and they have blacksmiths come and set up and do demonstrations. And then there are people cooking and stoves in the ground, and there's big stands where they're butchering things, and there's a huge line of fires, and they're roasting meat. It's the most amazing event that I could describe to you. It is so much fun. They set up like monuments for the fallen soldiers. We have a bonfire the last morning for the prisoners of war, the people that are missing in action. It's the best event ever. I love all of the people there, and it's honestly inspired me. So I'm actually trying to start a nonprofit called Fields of Valor, where I start having butcheries initially all over the Northeast, but eventually all over the country, where farmers, veterans, and chefs all come together and can spend time together and cook and eat food. So I'm hoping to have my first one in April of next year. My farm, my main goal is not only to grow good food for people, but to be able to provide a place for education. Blackwind, building land, agriculture, and culinary knowledge while working in nature's domain. I believe it's important to be working as close to the earth and mimicking nature, doing regenerative grazing, sustainable agriculture, where you're trying to, actually improve the soil, leave it better than you found it, and create long-lasting systems that don't rely on inputs coming from far away. So I have Cooney pigs, I have Dexter cross cattle, I have Katahdin sheep, I do some chickens. I'm hopefully getting some grants next year where I can get some equipment. I want to start growing more of my own livestock feed and then doing some vegetables for sale too. But it's very important to be able to actually like not have to buy food from people in the future for my animals or myself. Yeah.
When you're able to grow your own feed for your animals, I mean that's just one more factor that you can't control that's off the plate.
I think it's important to look at what people were doing in the past to feed their animals, because they have things called mango beets. They're beets that grow to be like 20, 40 pounds. They're similar to sugar beets that you would make wine out of, but that's what they would feed animals. They have what's called tillage radishes. They're just daikons, but they grow 24 inches long. They'll be 3 inches around. They're 18 to 20% protein. So if we go back to using a lot of these crops, and those are both cold weather crops, it becomes much easier to feed the animals.
What advice would you give to other veterans who would like to get into farming?
Try to stay out of debt. If you're going to use it wisely as possible. Try to start farming on leased land. So find out what the appropriate rate is. Talk to the farmers around you. Get to know the people in your community. Be a part of that community. Because when something goes wrong, they're the people that are going to help me. My neighbors save my bacon all the time. Chickens are the fastest crop you can produce, other than peas, I think, and some lettuces. You can have chicken in 7 weeks. Like 7 weeks from the day it hatches to the day that it's ready to go on your plate at like 5 pounds or 4.5 pound average is 7 weeks. And if you want smaller chickens, like at the grocery store, like the ones that they're using to like make KFC or fried chickens, those are smaller chickens. Those are ready in 5 weeks. I think a lot of people count out animal agriculture. You need 1 acre. You can do 500 chickens, and you can sell them for $5. You can make $10,000 on 1 acre if you market your chickens correctly. And You have to be able to market the stuff you're selling, and that's very difficult.
Yeah.
But you can make the best stuff and grow the best stuff and have the best pigs. And if nobody knows that you exist, you're never going to make any money. Food for people is one of the best, most important things you can do in life. But if you go onto a farm and your goal is all these moral things and you don't have a solid farming plan, you're going to lose the land.
That's great advice. In closing, Justin, I want to thank you for not only for your service in the Navy, but also for your ongoing service to veterans. And I'm looking forward to seeing your own nonprofit take form as another way to sort of combine those loves that you have of being a veteran, being a farmer, being a chef. I love how you've been able to weave those things together. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun to talk to you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been a privilege.
Thank you for listening. Open the latest issue of Successful Farming. Visit us online at agriculture.com and subscribe to 15 Minutes with a Farmer so you never miss a chance to connect with the people who feed, clothe, and fuel the world. And to all the veterans and their families listening, we thank you for your service.